Hi and welcome back to the channel. After releasing the Orchestral EQ Advisor, I received many responses saying that the tool is really useful and helpful for you, so I'm glad that the overall community response is good. And in some of the messages I also received the hint for the future updates and future features, additional features to the tool. So in this respect I decided to update it and add two new modules. First, dedicated for reverb and panning settings, and the third in the row, the compression settings, both for the individual instruments and also for group and bass. So without further ado, let's jump to the tool, let's find out the new features and how those features can be applied to your projects. After downloading whole package, you will see those icons, and the most important one is this Orchestral Mixing Advisor, because now the tool was renamed, bearing in mind that it's more comprehensive about the mixing approach of your projects. So you can double click on this icon, and now it will be open in your default browser. On the landing page you can see now three modules. First, which is familiar for you, Orchestral EQ Advisor, dedicated for EQing your instrument. The second one, Orchestral Panning and Reverb Advisor, which is rather self-explanatory because gives you the settings for panning and reverb settings for each of the instruments. And the third one in the row, Orchestral Compression Advisor, which helps you find the right way to glue your instrument and make your orchestral mockup sound more cohesive one. So let's start from the Orchestral EQ Advisor quickly. The layout is the same as for the previous version, so you can choose the instrument, what are you hearing, and the overall context. Click Recommend EQ, and after that you can see the suggested EQ settings and export settings either for the stock EQ plugins and also for FabFilter. The one additional thing which was added is this reset button, so if you want to start from the beginning with the new instrument, you can simply click here and the layout will come back to the default view. Next we have the Orchestral Panning and Reverb Advisor, which in my humble opinion is the most comprehensive tool from all of these three modules. So let's jump into this tool, and when you open it you can see this short manual. And in this respect we have two really important things. First, the approach for settings of this reverb. As you can see, the manual told you that you should create 6 reverb buses, and this reverb buses is dedicated from room, so the convolution reverb, and the whole algorithmic reverb. So 3 room reverbs and 3 whole reverbs. So generally speaking, each of the instrument, and this is the main approach, should be sent both to the room and the whole reverb, bearing in mind the settings which will be provided by this tool. Second thing, which is equally important and which should be also implemented before you apply the settings of this orchestral panning and reverb, is the way of panning and the settings of panning of your instruments. So the main approach is that you should apply the stereo combined panner. So let's jump quickly to the Cubase. As you can see in this mixer, we have our instrument, the flutes in this respect. And by default in Cubase, you have this set as a balance panner. And tweaking the balance panner in the consideration to the orchestral music is not really good thing, because if you tweak it to the left or to the right, you are simply taking volume down of the right or the left channel of your stereo channel in this channel of the instrument. So as a consequence, you are losing the information of the right or of the left channel. So in this respect, we want to make this as a stereo combine panel by clicking the right click and clicking here. And now the layout was changed, as you can see, and after implementing this combined panel, you will be able to implement the settings which will be provided by this tool. Moving forward, now we can go directly to receiving the settings for our reverb and panning for our instrument. So as you can see here, we have the menu for the instrument family, so we can choose which the family is most interesting for us for now, and let's assume it will be woodwinds. And after that we can choose the instrument from this family, so let's assume it will be flutes. What's next? Next we have A and B profiles, and this profiles is dedicated for the hall in which our instrument will be placed. So the concert hall, which is dedicated for rather longer tail of the instrument, and the second one is the scoring stage, so this is more chamber one, let's say, is rather shorter in comparison to the concert hall. So for now, let's assume I want to create the scoring stage vibe by clicking use this. And as you can see, this information was changed by saying that you selected scoring stage. And now you are ready to go, and you can click the recommend panning and reverb. And now we received two columns. The left column is dedicated for the instrument channel, and the right column is dedicated for our reverb bass channel. So let's start from the left. As you can see, we have this panning information, so the information for our stereo combine panel. So let's open the Cubase. We have our stereo combine panel for the flutes, and let's click here left and implement left 80 and right 60, and voila, panning was implemented. What we have next? We have the adjustment for channel volume level, and this adjustment is really important because, as you probably know, the instruments in the stereo field are placed in a different situation and different place. So the most upfront instruments are string section, then we have the woodwind section, the brass section, and the percussion. So this adjustment for the volume creates the illusion of displacement of these instrument groups. So as we have now the woodwinds group, the app says that the adjustment of the volume should be placed around -2 and -3 dBs. And what is important, this adjustment can be applied either for the channel, each of the channel of the instrument, or you can also create the group of the instruments as I made in my demonstrate template. And I have the woodwinds group, and we can apply this adjustment for the volume generally for all of the woodwinds instrument only in this group. The most important thing is that for the flutes, you set the routing here to the woodwinds, and now this signal from the flutes goes directly to the woodwinds group, and as a consequence from the woodwinds group, the signal goes to the stereo out, so the general master bus of our template. In the right column, as I said, we have the information for our reverb buses. So starting from the top, we have the room convolution information, so the targeted 1.2 seconds. Second one is the whole algorithmic reverb targeted to 2.4 seconds. Then we have the pre-delay, and these pre-delay settings should be applied both to room and the algorithmic whole reverb. And the fourth one is the level of sense. So let's jump again to the Cubase. As you can see, in our flutes channel, we have this send. And here we should apply the place where our signal from flutes should be sent. So as I said, we send it to either room and either for whole reverb. And now we can click on and set this level which was previously shown in our application. So -9 and again -9. And as previously, you can apply those send settings for each of the instrument, but you also can send all of your group instruments in your group channel. So let's try to do this now. We have those flutes which was sent to the woodwinds group, and now in the woodwinds group we can click room and we can click whole, click on, and now all of the instruments which was sent for the woodwinds group also sends the signal to either room and the whole reverb in the level of sends set to -9 dBs. And last but not least, the type of send. In Cubase, we have the opportunity to choose whether the type of set will be pre or the post fader. And what does it mean? So if you set your reverb send as the post fader, so label in the orange, the level of send is triggered by the tweaking of the volume fader of the group channel or of the individual channel if you decided to set the send for each of the instrument. But if you changed your send to the pre-fader, then the level of send of this pre-fader send is independent of the volume fader. So no matter how far you go down or you go up with your volume fader of the group or of the instrument channel, the level of send will be set, generally speaking, in the default 0 level. And we can simply change the way how our send will behave by clicking this icon. So now in the orange, as I said, it will be post fader, and if we click here, the label was changed to blue, and now the send is a pre-fader. And again, clicking here, now the whole reverb is set as a pre-fader send. And this setting is extremely important when we talk about placing the instrument in the stereo field, because generally speaking, if we tweak with the reverb settings for the strings family, generally this send will be set as a post fader. But if you want to receive the instrument sound which are more far away from the listener or the conductor, this send will be usually set by the application as a pre-fader. And I also almost forgot to mention about this last menu, so the seat map. This is the really simple visual representation of these panning settings. So if you feel that those settings are not for you or you want to tweak it, you can simply take this dot and you can tweak it to the left and to the right. And as you can see, these panning settings are changing approximately of the movement of this dot. For those of you who want to have more control over those settings, I prepared the advanced options. You can jump to it by clicking this triangle, and then the options will be revealed. And as you can see in this menu, you can tweak with width of your instrument, depth, and area refraction, tail emphasizes. So let's start from the width. This is the default setting, but if you want to make your instrument sound a little bit more narrow as a solo instrument, you can click here. Or maybe you want to reveal more cinematic one sound, more wider sound of your instrument, you can click here. So let's assume we want to receive this cinematic one, click here, recommend, and as you can see, the placement in the panning was changed. The same thing is for the depth. So by default, we have these settings in the middle. But if you want to create a sound which is more close one to the listener, you can take this dot to the left, click again recommend, and as you can see, the level of sense was changed to -15, -14. And the same thing is when you want to create the sound which is more far away from the listener, by taking this dot to the right, clicking again recommend, and again the level of sense was set to -3, -2 dBs. If you are happy with your settings for this instrument, you can implement it on a row to the Cubase, but if you want to implement all of the settings for all of the instrument in one row, you can simply export this view to the PNG file, and now we can open it, and we have these specific settings in the separate file, which is properly labeled, so you can always come back to these settings and, as I said, implement all of the settings to all of the instruments in one row. As it was said previously, for the Orchestral EQ Advisor, if you want to start from the very beginning for different instrument, I implement this reset button. So if you click here, we come back to the default stage of the tool. Let's jump finally quickly to the last tool, so the compression settings, by clicking back, landing page, and here we have the Orchestral Compression Advisor. And the menu is really simple. We can choose the instrument or the bus to which we want to implement the compression settings. As you can see, we have the master bass, orchestra bass, strings, brass basses, and also the group channels for the solo instruments, woodwinds, specific articulation for brass, for strings, etc., etc., and also some of the percussion instruments. So mostly the compression should be and is applied for the percussion instruments. So let's start from the timpani. Click show recommendation, and now we have and we can see the compression type which should be applied to the timpani, the ratio, attack, release in milliseconds, and the makeup gain to our overall volume of the channel after implementing the compression settings. And we can go back to the other instrument or the group. Let's say we want to add a little bit compression to glue all of our instruments, so the master bass. Click again show recommendation, and as you can see, the compression type was changed to VRC or tube compressor. The ratio is different, etc., etc. And as previously, you can always copy these instrument settings to the text file or export it to the PNG file to come back to these settings later. As for Orchestral EQ Advisor, this updated tool is also free to download from my Buy Me a Coffee channel, so you can download it and try it, whether this is something for you or whether this is helpful during in my making the orchestral mockups. Thank you once again for the warm response regarding the tool. I'm really happy that my work brings you the value. And as previously said, if you have any request about already implemented features or the new features which should be implemented to the tool and will help you receiving more realistic orchestral mockups, just let me down in the comment, or you can send me an email if your response will be longer than the space dedicated for the response in the comment. I will be happy to read it and implement it if it will be feasible for me to do it. Thanks for watching. And as always, happy mixing for all of you.